My grandma and her family used to live in a small area in Tennessee. Her parents, siblings, and she moved into an old farmhouse in the 50s. I asked her how old she thought the house was, but she said she didn't know. All she knew was that it was definitely old. In the night, they would hear a door open and shut in the house, all night long. And then there was the sound of a cat screeching. Finally, her daddy had enough and removed the hinges off the door and replaced them with leather hinges to see if that would stop the door from opening and shutting. It didn't. Open, shut, cat screech, over and over. Under the house was enough room for her and her siblings to play. The house was set up high on stones, so there was no skirting under the home. It was just open. Someone had tried to build a cellar but never finished it. Every time they went down there, they would find balls of long hair. The hair looked grayish, like a woman's hair. And underneath the balls of hair were coins. So my grandma and her siblings would just toss the hair and grab the coins. There was no explanation for why the coins were there, and why they were underneath hair. One day, my grandma's mama got sick, so great-great-grandma came over to help with the kids. She only stayed one night. She got ready to leave before the sun came up. Grandma said her mama asked her why she was leaving, to which she replied, "I seen a man and his wife pass through the dresser and into the wall. The wife was missing her head. I ain't staying in this house." She left and never came back to the house. Across from the house where they lived was an open field. In the field was a large 3-story home, a rancher-type house. In its heyday, it must have been beautiful, but now it looked weathered. The paint peeled. It just looked like it'd seen better days. Every night on the top floor, in one of the windows, everyone saw a candlelight flickering. Grandma's dad was curious, and one day he walked over to the old house to see where the light could be coming from. Was anyone living there? All the kids went along. Great-grandpa walked inside. Man, the house on the inside looked worse. There was no way someone could go upstairs. Why? Because the stairs had rotted away. Meanwhile, Grandma's half-sister went to the cellar door and opened it. Down in the cellar was an old, tacky-looking man. He looked up and said to her,
"Come on in."
Her sister slammed the door and ran. There were no steps that led into the cellar. I don't think they ever went back to that old house again. They stayed in their house from when my grandma was 8 till she was 11. And then they moved, never looking back. We moved in this home around 2000. I was 3 or 4. Honestly, after we moved in, it felt like our lives had gone downhill. I honestly believe there was something evil in that house. My mom says the first night she slept in the house, she dreamed of a thick fog and a black cat. She woke up and remembers telling Dad that they messed up buying the house. It gave her a feeling of dread. My grandma and my mom were sitting in the living room, and I was sitting on the floor playing. We all heard a man groan behind the door. there was no one there. In one of the rooms that we used as a junk room, there were outlines of where posters had been on the walls. So the space was white where the poster had been, but the rest of the walls had a yellow tinge. I guess somebody there smoked. Where our back door was, back where our washer and dryer would be in our utility room, there were tiny scratches on the bottom of the door. Like cat scratches. My parents' bedroom door had the same thing at the bottom. When I was around 6, I thought I saw something in the back room, but I saw it out of the corner of my eye. It was something white, like a dress with a long train. It went from one side of the room to the other. It might have been my imagination, but I don't know. I would have dreams where I would try and run out of one of the rooms, but I couldn't. I couldn't scream. My legs went numb. It was like I couldn't run away. Like something dragged me back. My mom woke up one morning and seen what she thought was my dad at the end of the bed. It was a work day. She thought he came back home early. Maybe he was sick. The man had red hair, like my dad, and wore a blue workman's uniform. When she cleared her eyes, the man was gone. My grandma and grandpa stayed with us in the house. My grandpa was on hospice, so my mom helped give him medication. My grandma had a dream where she saw the man with red hair in the bathroom. He looked at the mirror over the sink. My grandpa was scared for the lights to be turned off. During this time, my parents would argue, like all the time. Anyone who stayed in the house, it was like the tension was so thick you could cut it with a knife. I was having problems of my own. I was depressed almost all the time. I always felt like I was being watched. Like there was always something just watching me. I'd look behind my shoulder and of course there would be nothing. My grandma felt one time something got into bed with her. The way she described it, it was like a big dog. She'd be half asleep and kick it out of bed, and it would get right back into bed with her. Kick it out, get back in, till finally it stopped. I remember my mom and I watching this movie in my parents' bedroom when all of a sudden we heard this loud bang. It was like someone took a concrete block and threw it as hard as they could against the floor in the bathroom or closet. We jumped and looked around. Nothing. Nothing fell. But it was so loud. It definitely sounded like it came from the closet. That closet. It was huge. It was a deep walk-in closet. My grandma was up one morning taking care of Grandpa when she said she started hearing sounds of wire hangers violently hitting the sides of the closet wall. She knocked on my parents' door. She thought my mom had gotten into a fight with my dad and was packing his stuff or hers and was jerking clothes off the hangers, letting them hit the closet walls. My grandma found out that my parents were still sound asleep. My mom sat on the couch one day and felt something furry rub up against her leg, like a cat. There wasn't a cat there. This happened twice. The second time she felt it pull on her shirt. Grandma and Mom said they were sitting on the couch and they heard a picking sound, like a cat sharpening its nails on the treadmill they had. There were marks on the treadmill from cat's claws. But no cat. We didn't have a cat. Halloween. My mom put out a step mat we had for years. This was one of those things where you stepped on it and a man's voice would say, Happy Halloween! Ha 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 ha. It was a real cute step mat. Purple, orange pumpkin. It went off by itself. All the time. Like someone kept stepping on it. She ripped out the voice box and step sensor mechanism. I'm sure other things happened, but I just can't remember. I'm not sure I want to. When I was 9 years old, I went to a sleepaway camp for the summer. The camp itself was massive and very isolated. The kids were separated into age groups and gender. Each group slept in a different camp area, inside wood cabins. My group's cabin was right off the main road of the camp, allowing easy access for cars to come into our area. My story happened one night when I woke up and needed to pee. My cabin did not have a bathroom, so I had to walk down this road to the bathhouse, which was right next to the entrance where cars could come in. When I left the cabin, I saw there was a white pickup truck in front of the bathhouse with its headlights on. I found it strange, but it got stranger when I got closer to the truck. Nobody was inside. I figured that the driver would be inside the bathhouse, but when I got inside there, nobody. I was starting to get spooked, so I did my thing as fast as I could. When I left the bathhouse, the truck was gone. There was no sign it was even there. I was shocked. The truck was close enough to the bathhouse, I would have heard it. I ran back up the hill to my cabin and just sat in bed for the rest of the night. I couldn't sleep. When the sun came up, I went back outside to check the area where the truck had been. There weren't even track marks. Impossible. The ground was muddy. To this day, I still don't know what happened. Was the truck really there or not? I used to hang out at this ATV park in western Iowa. The park was mostly thick wooded trails. My friends and I had permission to camp there next to a river, under the condition that we always left with more trash than we came with. Our campsite was about 1 mile from the parking lot. The parking lot was gated off with a 6-foot fence and motorized steel gate blocking the entrance. There's no way in the park if you're outside, and there's no way out if you're inside once that gate is locked. I mean, you could climb the fence, but what would be the point? So this night, my friends and I decided to hike back to our cars to grab some supplies. We came in view of the lot, which is about 300 yards, and we could see taillights in the parking lot. I texted the park ranger, asked him if he was there or if he knew somebody was there. He didn't reply. I mean, it was so late, he was probably asleep. We then thought maybe it's the police. As we got closer, the vehicle looked like an old 1970s style 4-door car. Now we're really confused. It's not a cop car, it's not the park ranger. The gate is locked, we can see it locked from this distance. How did this car get inside? The car sped off and drove clean through the closed steel gate. It didn't make a noise. It simply disappeared. My heart pounded out of my chest. We always felt that the park was haunted. We'd always see shadow figures off in the distance, but as we approached them, they would disappear. But this phantom car? We tried to debunk it, but we could never come up with a logical explanation. One night I was at a party with a friend. My friend and I decided to leave the party in my car. We got into the car and I turned the car on. I looked both ways and then backed out of the spot. But as soon as I started to turn, a pickup truck going about 80 or 90 miles an hour slams into the passenger side of my car. Everything became slow motion at this point. The window shattered. My friend's head flies at me and hits me in the face, knocks me out. When I came to, I felt my whole body tingling. My head was foggy. My vision was blurry. My friend was unconscious with his head slumped over. I started screaming his name and he woke up slowly. The first thing he mumbled was, "Are you okay?" I replied I was, and then I asked what just happened. He said we got into an accident. I stumbled out of the car to check the damage, but my car was still in the parking space. Not only is it in the parking space, but it's untouched. At this point, my mind starts going crazy. I get back into the car and my friend is still foggy. I go to take the keys out of the ignition, but they were not even in there. I told my friend we were not in a car accident. He couldn't understand what I was talking about. When he got out, he was in complete shock. He recalled the exact experience I had, but it never happened. I went on living my life, but my friend went crazy. He started seeing demons inside people and would not leave his house, ever.